But Bush went further, and here's where it gets interesting, because Bush was uttering myths about Social Security that were similar exactly to the kinds of myths that are propagated nowadays by folks like Alan Simpson and Erskine Bowles. The idea that the program was never intended to be a retirement program, that it was created in an era when people weren't living in it long enough to even collect it, and that somehow the worker-retiree ratio in 1950 was 16-1, and therefore the program is unsustainable. Here's how he also characterized that in his speech. Again, this is sound element 9.
Social Security was created decades ago for a very different era. In those days, people did not live as long. Benefits were much lower than they are today. And a half century ago, about 16 workers paid into the system for each person drawing benefits.
Well, of course, benefits were lower at that time, but of course the payroll tax rate was also significantly lower. The payroll tax base was significantly lower. In the first couple decades of the program, they were kept adding new beneficiaries without actually paying for it. Okay, well, we got that fixed. And in addition, if some economists estimate that if workers' wages had grown in consistently with productivity in the past quarter century, then we'd be looking at a shortfall that was half as large. We could be talking about potentially even eliminating the entire shortfall if workers' wages grew at the same rate as productivity in the past quarter century and going forward. So has a lot to do with inequality, not so much to do with the actual amount we're paying into the system. Now, in addition, there's that issue of the worker-retiree ratio. Well, it was 16-1, David, in 1950 because they hadn't brought in all these people in the domestic workforce, in the farm workforce. They hadn't brought in all kinds of people. There were many people paying into the system who weren't yet collecting, the same as any pension system in its starting period. Since the 1970s, the worker-retiree ratio has been 3-1, and now it's going to be 2-1 and remain at that rate. It's still 3-1 today. I mean, this is just useless fear-mongering. And I might add, David, that the economy, in real terms, since Social Security was created, has grown 12-fold at least. The more our productivity increases, the fewer people we need to generate the same amount of capital. And in fact, it's worth noting that when the baby boomers were children, okay, the increase in the spending as a percent of GDP on education for those children was greater than the increase will be to cover those same baby boomers' retirement. And no one was saying then, oh, we can't afford to educate our largest generation of children ever. We shouldn't do any different for the retirement of our children today. Now, what's the takeaway from all of this? Well, privatization went down in flames. It discredited the Bush presidency and discredited the policy of privatizing Social Security. But what it also did was move the Overton window to the right, so that now any Democratic president or any even Republican that comes and proposes many changes to Social Security that effectively privatizing it by forcing people to get more of their retirement income from private sources that are a worse deal and create billions in fees for Wall Street seem reasonable by comparison. And that is not how it should be. We should be restoring our entire policy debate to truthfulness, and unfortunately what George Bush did was make any plan, including things like the Chain Consumer Price Index, now being proposed by Barack Obama, seem gone by comparison. And that's just not how it should be.